Well, hello everyone and good afternoon. Welcome to today's presentation as part of the Lunch and Learn series offered by the Engineering and Operations Management Department at the University of Arkansas. My name is Karin Hickenbotham. I'm the program manager here in the Operations Management program. Our department does offer 3 online degrees that I'd like to just briefly share with you right now through the Industrial Engineering Department. We have a Master's in Science in Operations Management, Master's of Science in Engineering Management, and a Master's of Science in Engineering. Towards the end of the presentation, we will have some information on these programs, or you can reach out to me individually if you have specific questions. So for today, I am very proud to introduce to you Jim Burgin. Jim has taught with the MSOM program since 2010 and currently teaches quality management, organizing for change, and maintenance management. Jim is a retired United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel with an Arkansas Bachelor's of Science in Industrial Engineering and an MBA. Jim honed his leadership and teaching during his 22-year Air Force career through diverse assignments from flying fighter jets in Europe to commanding the Arctic Survival School in Fairbanks. Since completing his military career, he has worked as a quality manager in manufacturing and as the Director of Maintenance Management for Tyson Foods. Jim has certifications in lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, and leadership. Jim, it's a pleasure for me to introduce to you Jim Burgin, and I'm going to go ahead and let Jim take over.
I'm here. So let's advance the slide. Okay, now let's hope I didn't advance it too far. Look at that. Well, we're off to a better start than a webinar that I attended a few days ago because their internet went down. So as long as you guys can hear me, then life is wonderful. And I want to thank Karin for helping get this all set up, and then for everyone else that's out there taking a chance to listen to this kind of strangely named webinar. It's cumbersome to take questions or comments during the presentation, but I certainly encourage you. Now, here's your first set of instructions. You can type it into the chat box, but if you hit return, it will show up, and I don't know if you get it back or not. So let's press on. The reason that I've kind of named this what I've named it is because I've been thinking about this for a long time. I've had students that they come and say, well, what are you teaching next? Now, these are foolish people that think they want to take another class with me. But anyway, regardless of their mental challenges, I say, well, I'm teaching maintenance. And they go, why in the world would I want to do maintenance? I'm not going to be working on industrial equipment or anything else like that. So, you know, why would you do that? And actually, I went back and looked at my slides as I was preparing for this, and I saw that I had actually have one of my blocks of instruction that says, tell me about something maintenance that's not industrial or grease related. And I'll talk about grease related, I guess, most of the time. So the neat thing is maintenance actually is just a vehicle to teach a lot of the other OM concepts, operations management concepts. So I'll talk about a little bit of this. We're not going to cover all of this today for sure, but the maintenance course talks about, or maintenance in general talks about planning and scheduling, inventory management, and a little bit of supply chain, certainly safety, project management, especially when you get into the big things like if I'm going to have the side of my house painted, there's a lot of project management involved in that. Certainly leadership and supervision, and that's going to kind of come into to everything. Metrics, key performance indicators, documenting things, and even some lean principles. So I actually contend that this class sets them up for as a good opportunity to prepare for some of the our last requirement, which is going before the staff and having them ask you questions. So a lot of tiebacks to this. Now, what you're seeing are shade tree mechanics, I guess. You know, these guys are your grease guys, except for the one down in the bottom picture, and that is a shade vehicle mechanic. And I'm going to guess if we went looking for him, he might not be around because of Darwinism. But I'm just saying that what we're seeing more and more, and when I was working for Tyson, we could not find, you know, mechanics, the word mechanic ties back to a root word, mechanical. Well, some of the maintenance that you're going to see in the world is mechanical, but there's also, you're calling them technicians now, and technicians are really, we had trouble finding some 2-year people that had an electronics associate degree, because so much of the equipment these days, including in automobiles and in various other pieces of equipment, are tied to a circuit board. And testing that circuit board, you really need electronics technicians. We've got a lot of program logic controllers and computer numeric controllers out there, very much gotten into the technician world, and you can kind of see that in that picture. One of the things that was kind of advertised with this course, and so I kind of threw it in at the very end because I hadn't thought about it in this area, but I want to take care of something that some of you might have shown up for, and it's called competitive advantage. Why is maintenance a competitive advantage? Well, when I was working for Tyson, we were working to put in a large program to introduce SAP plant maintenance in, and as we were going along, one of the namesakes of the company was going to come visit the plant where I was working at the time. And my boss's boss said, "Hey, Jim, what are you going to say when he says, 'Hey, Burgin, it's only maintenance'?" And I said, "Well, that's an easy question." In this plant, it was costing them $150,000 weekly in labor, parts, and contractors, but which turns out to be pretty big money. I mean, it's almost $8 million if you take that over a year. But more importantly, whether your lines run and your operations continue, whether you're meeting customer expectations, whether you're paying your production workers to just stand around while somebody tries to put this thing back together for you, and you're not gathering any data on any of your equipment. The big thing about this is that maintenance is a cost center versus a profit center. So if you've got a cost center and you save $1 million, you save $1 million. You add that right into the bottom line of your earnings for the year. A profit center is set up to where if you have a 4%, and I'm not going to do the math for you, but if you have a 4% margin on your product, how much of it do you have to sell in order to add $1 million to your bottom line? So certainly it's a competitive advantage in that area. And let me add one more thing in here. Maintenance is not understood, and I'll talk about out in the industrial world, but then I will get back to the no grease side of things also. In the industrial world, I have heard stories that people have gone and done a plant. As we were introducing this program, we were going out to show and look around on the floor, and there wasn't one maintenance guy on the floor. And my boss was kind of thinking about this, finding it a little bit strange. And once again, I go back to maintenance is not well understood sometimes. When they got around to the break room, all the technicians and maintenance guys were sitting in the break room, and the plant leadership was so proud. And they were proud, and I'll give you a second to think about it, but why were they proud? They were proud because nothing was broken down, so they didn't have to be out on the floor. So, like I say, it's not terribly well understood. But the no grease part of this actually applies to many different activities. So, here's the definition of maintenance that I found. The process of making sure that something continues in the same way or at the same level. Well, I don't see the word grease anywhere in there, or dirty hands, or anything else. And maybe you've heard, but there's something called the coronavirus, COVID-19 out there. And one of the really big things, and this will kind of lead you into the no grease side of things, hopefully, is that hopefully you're doing something to maintain both your body and your mind to help combat this. I'm into day, let me see, 75 or 76 of pretty well staying at home. And I haven't gone crazy yet, but I certainly have not maintained my haircut. My hair is as long as it's been since I was in college. So Lowe's, why in the world do I have a picture of Lowe's here? Well, I can make a couple of points with Lowe's. Lowe's is my second home, or was my second home before this pandemic came around. And my wife was pointing out the other day that I better get back to Lowe's because they were going to have to start laying off people because I wasn't coming to Lowe's. Well, as luck would have it, that is not the case in any way, shape, or form. Lowe's has higher revenue and higher profits since the pandemic started. And the reason is that people are doing maintenance on their homes and their whatever else that they're doing. Maybe it's not all renovation budget, which I guess would be a kind of continuous improvement maintenance, but people are doing an awful lot of work on their houses and their yards. And with that, Lowe's is making all kinds of money, despite I'm not going there very often, which is probably an indicator that I am not really very good at practicing a little bit of what I preach, because I have been doing a lot of maintenance around the house, but my inventory of materials has been strong enough that I haven't had to go to Lowe's. So maybe that's an indicator there too. Okay, there's a show out there, and I've been lined up to do this maintenance presentation for a while, and I'm a little bit of a maintenance nerd, so everything I see, not everything I see, but a lot of things I see maintenance in it. And there's something on the History Channel talks about life after people. Well, life after people says, hey, something got all the people on Earth, and how long and what's the impact on what the infrastructure that we've put up. Well, it does not take long, and it's pretty amazing. It does not take long for the various plants and animals and the wind and the rain and the sun to start taking things down if you don't maintain them. So here's the Eiffel Tower as it is today, and they do a pretty good job with their graphics to kind of show what the future would be. And I'm talking, I don't know, 100, 150 years, maybe less than that, for the Eiffel Tower to come down. But part of what they talked about on the show was the Eiffel Tower is painted and probably a lot of the corrosion taken away every 7 years. They also talk about the Golden Gate Bridge. And something you might not know about the Golden Gate Bridge, well, the first thing that'll happen are the cables will go. They'll rust, and as the cables go, then the structure goes. But the maintenance of the Golden Gate Bridge has 17 iron workers that work full-time on the Golden Gate Bridge, 38 painters, and as they finish up painting on one side of the bridge, they take a car back to the other side and start painting again. So maintenance is critical to an awful lot of our infrastructure, and you can think of some of the infrastructure problems that we're having out there in the world right now. So you've got some different types of maintenance. You've got reactive, breakdown, emergency maintenance, and I've got some slides for this. You've got corrective maintenance. You've got the proactive maintenance where you do the preventive maintenance. And once again, I'm going to talk about all this, but I wanted to kind of give you a view of it. Predictive, which is really not too much in the non-greasy side of things. Then you've got some inspections and then run to failure. So as we press on here, we have had, if you've seen any of the pictures of the pandemic, excuse me, we're talking about emergency breakdown of the bodies, and very reactive maintenance as people, just the ICUs have filled up, the emergency rooms have filled up, and in a lot of cases they didn't have the inventory that they needed. And if we had all kinds of time, I'd talk about just-in-time inventory, but I'm not gonna go there right now. But I'll give you some other ones. You have a son or a daughter, and they've got to go to class, or a wife, or a husband, and they go out, and it's time to go to class, or it's time to go to work, and they have a flat tire. You are now into emergency or breakdown maintenance for sure. And in the plants, you see people running, and that generally indicates you've got a maintenance problem, a breakdown maintenance problem. Now, on the corrective maintenance or preventive maintenance side, and this really came to mind, this actually will go under inspection also, because you can punch that button and see if the light comes on and it blows your eardrums out, and you'll know that you've at least inspected it. Now, in my last class, we did everything online, but I was talking to all 11 of my students, and we were all getting together on what Blackboard has as the equivalent of a Zoom meeting. And I could always tell when this one young lady came on, because there was a beep. There was a beep. And after the second week of the beeps, I asked her, "Is that a smoke detector?" And she says, "Yes." And I said, "You know, you need to change the batteries in your smoke detector." So it now becomes corrective maintenance, because you've got to take the thing down. By the way, the smoke detector beeped all the way through the entire class. And I'm not talking about one night. I'm talking about all 8 weeks. But on the preventive maintenance side, you can take the smoke detector, and I think it's whenever you change your clocks, as we go from daylight savings time to standard time, and you can change the batteries, and that's what would be tied to preventive maintenance. Now, I said I was a little bit of a nerd based on maintenance, and one of the saddest moments, I guess, because I didn't know at the time that I was not going to be back, but I'm at a Razorback basketball game, and they come out, and the net has, they're playing along, and the referee stopped the game, and the net has broken at one of these little, where the loops hang down from. So they bring out and then he stops the game. And he bring out the specialty piece of, he's got to have one part and one piece of specialty equipment. And actually there was another piece of another part or whatever as it worked out. So man, here comes out the 10-foot step ladder. Up he goes, and something went wrong. He had the net, he had the part that he needed, went up, tried to fix it. Something was wrong. I was too far away to see what the problem was, but I think he took out a piece of tape and he taped the loop together and solved the problem. And then, as happens in many plants, and probably even with the tire that was flat for your wife or your son or daughter or husband, you can fill that up and make it all the way to wherever you need to go if you've got a compressor or something like that. So anyway, they didn't get it fixed completely. They came back out at halftime, and they got it fixed with a new net. Now, why do I call this run to failure? Run to failure means you don't fix it until it fails. And I don't know what the standard is for rehanging a basketball net, but one of the things that's interesting is that normally this would fail during practice probably. Well, we now have a separate practice area that where the teams practice, so maybe it's not going to fail. It's only going to fail in the game. So should you inspect it? Well, I don't know. But in this case, it was run to failure. And I'll give you another run to failure in the other real world, and that is nobody replaces the battery in their car until that thing fails. Or I beg your pardon, most people don't change the battery in their car. So that talks about some of the things you'll see. Just so I can talk about Predictive just a little bit, they've got specialty equipment that you can use some kind of a heat gun and determine when the electrical fuses or the electrical systems are going to fail. And one of the ways it gets used an awful lot is in some of the big motors or big systems, they'll do vibration failure also. So now this guy's named Taiichi Ohno, and he is, I like Taiichi Ohno. He talks about learning to see. Now, Taiichi Ohno was also the person that developed the Toyota production system. You get into lean manufacturing. But what he would do is go out and draw a circle on the floor and stand in that circle and watch the process. And he would see things that, yeah, the process was written down pretty well, but they weren't following the process. And as one of my jobs as quality manager, I went out and did this also, and it was amazing. But I'm not going to, I can't digress off of that, but learning to see is a very important part. Now, my wife does not, this is my front yard. My wife does not know who Taiichi Ohno is in any way, shape, or form. But man, oh man, can she see. And she's taught me to see. So, standing in one place, if you look at number 1, that thing needs a new gasket because it leaks when that's a backflow diverter. Number 2, the pyrocanthia needs to be trimmed so it does not kill the male person when they come by. 3 of the boxwoods need to be trimmed. And 4, somebody forgot to edge when they went by. Now the truck, I could spend probably the rest of the day on the truck because it needs to be washed, the oil needs to be checked, it needs to be waxed. It's got a whole lot of different things that I probably, but it's a farm truck. So, and 2 are the all the limbs hanging down, and the it takes my pole saw to take down the limbs. So once again, you need to see. Now, where are you going to capture the information that you have seen? You're going to capture it on a to-do list, of course, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But with maintenance and clues, I mean, you don't have to see everything, but being an old airplane guy, I do a walk around in my house most mornings, and I see a lot of things, and many of them are on the list from the previous day, and then some of them are added. But maintenance has gotten a lot better, and on the right you can see the idiot lights on your that you're going to see on your car, so it's going to tell you that something is wrong. Filtrete came out with something really interesting, that where you, as you put in the filter, you can enter it into your computer and they will tell you every 3 months when it should be changed. So, and then Instant Ink is a new thing that's come out by HP, and they actually go in and monitor my ink supply on my HP printer, and they send me ink when it gets down to a certain level, and they just charge you a little bit per month. And so you've got some help with maintenance. I currently need to change the air filter on my refrigerator. I'm sidetracked home executives. You know, I think we're running a little behind, so I'm going to skip this, but this is a book on learning to see and doing maintenance, documentation. So let's talk about some planning and scheduling. If you do it in the industrial way, there might be a little bit of grease involved. But then you've got the question about whether you planning and scheduling still works regardless if you are a hirer or a doer. Now, a hirer says my lawn needs to be mowed, I'm going to hire someone to do it. And that probably takes away all the maintenance that you've got to do on your lawnmower, maybe even your weed eater. But if you're a doer, and I'm mostly a doer, I have a coffee cup that says, he who dies with the most tools wins. So, and if you're a doer and you want to take things on, it's amazing how you can find anything on the internet out there. If you want to change the screen on your iPhone 6, you can do it. And the neat thing about having a smartphone these days is if you start taking something apart, you have a camera right there so that you can take pictures as you take it apart, because it's amazing. Once you get it apart, it doesn't look the same as when you start to put it back together. But you can't complete any of this work without parts and tools. So you've got to have some tools. Now, these are industrial type tools, and you've got a temperature, infrared temperature gathering or thermometer. You've got probably some vibration equipment. I don't know what's down in the lower left-hand corner, but I really would like to have 30 seconds on one of the jackhammers, and then if you watch Salvage Dogs, you'll see a lot on with the great big crescent wrenches, which is kind of fun too. Now for me, oh, I beg your pardon. I love this slide. I use this slide in every maintenance discussion that I talk about, and this is actually what happened. If you look just behind the two-wheeler there, there's 2 or 3 motors. I can't really tell, but those are big motors, and those big motors cost a lot of money. And these, you got to put them on shelves that will hold them. This is like a set of dominoes that went over, and I'll just bet you that they didn't have any clue where anything was. And I'll bet you their maintenance went down significantly. Maintenance capabilities went down significantly as they started to stand this stuff up and try to find all the parts and pieces. But if they did it like this, they don't know where it is. And we'll talk about 5S in just a minute here. Here's some more parts and tools, and I can't do it without a weed eater. I can't do it without a power washer. You got a pull saw that my wife got me that she checked if my life insurance was paid up before she gave it to me. You got the basketball net, and then you've got some Meguiar ceramic wax. So you've got to have the parts and the tools to do the job going forward. Now, on the leadership and supervision side, you've got a picture of an industrial type operation where that may be the maintenance manager, and he's talking to his two supervisors and he's giving them their plan for the day. And they go out and they execute that plan. And I'll come back to the leadership side of this in just a second. And then you've got me doing my to-do list that I have either built myself by being taught to see or has been provided to me. Now, I will ask you to think back when you are given a to-do list, and this is no different from the maintenance mechanics in the upper left, and you're given a list of things to do. Now, I just have you think about this for just a second. Which ones on that list do you do first? The one at the top, the most important one, if you just give them a list. Well, I know there's some of you out there saying, well, you got to do the one that's the most important. Try to sell that to somebody else, please. I'm going to do the ones that are the easiest or the most fun, or I can get done the quickest, because there is no better feeling. Well, there's probably some other better feelings, but there's a good feeling when you can take out a pencil or the delete button on your phone or whatever and scratch out one of those things you've done on the list. Same is the case with anybody that has a set of jobs to do. And that's why you've got to have the supervision to follow up and make sure that they're doing the jobs that need to be done, because even the technicians in an industrial environment are going to get called away, so they're not going to get to finish all their jobs. So you want them to get to the most important jobs out there. Now, in the industrial side or the grease side, the documentation of work done is generally done with an ERP or some kind of other maintenance management system, and these are just a few of them: SAP, Oracle. Microsoft's gotten into the game, so it's real easy, and they make it real easy to not only plan and schedule, but also document what you've done. Now, you can also do it in a very easy way with a notebook, and we saw a lot of places that had notebooks to do things out there, or not clipboards, but bulletin boards to keep track. So, and then there is a poor but effective system, and I hope you can see this. This is on my planer. Blade change 11/29/16. It's a double-sided blade. So I said the second side of the blade was changed on 3/5/20. At least I know, and I was pretty amazed that I'd gone 4 years, almost 4 years, without changing the blade on my planer. All right, let's talk real quick about 5S. And it's because there's 5 S's: sort, set in order, shine, standardized, and sustain. Now is a good time, if you've got questions or comments, to start typing them in. Do not hit return. If you do all of the things above, you'll get the 6th S, which is safety. So, sort. Now, this is no plant, but you have got a corner of your garage, or you've got some place, you've got a storage room, that has a whole bunch of stuff in it that you'll never use ever again. And I'm not talking about Marie Kondo of them bringing you joy. These are just things that you didn't know what to do with. You didn't really want to throw them away. You might recycle them or whatever. And you got to sort out and get rid of all the unwanted and unnecessary stuff. And whoever you send to do this, for instance, in my family, I am a much better sorter than my better half. So I would, in an industrial situation, I would not ask them to go, those that can't do it, to go and sort things out. Now, as another example, you have a junk drawer. Everybody's got a junk drawer. In fact, I've got a couple of them. You could take, in the bottom of the slide, you can see it says nature abhors a vacuum. Well, you could take this junk drawer, if it's been a junk drawer for long enough in your house, take it and dump it into the trash can. And if you came back 6 months later, it would be full again, because nature abhors a vacuum, and this has already been designated as a junk drawer. But as you go in and clean it out, at least sort and get rid of, let me see, we got 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, probably 5 or 6 rolls of different kinds of tape that I don't know if they're bringing you joy or not. So sort, get rid of the stuff that you don't need. Set in order, a place for everything and everything in its place. I actually have worked for a guy one time, and I believe it. He said he could be blindfolded, put him in his garage, and then start asking him to go find things, and he could. And I think it's very true. Shine. And once again, we're into the grease world, but if you look at the machine on the left, it's the same as the one on the right. But how are you going to know whether you've got a problem with that, if you've got an oil leak or whatever? And let me take it back out to your driveway. You back out and you say, God, I hope that's water that's dripped underneath the car and not oil. Well, it's giving you a clue at least. If you so it points to problems that you need to fix. Standardize, and this is for emergency, how you do things, and this really gets back to the information on computers and how you keep up with your computer files. I went through, and I was not going to put it back so I could take it before and after, but I went through this. We have Blackboard in our where we keep track of classes and various things. And I've been teaching for 10 years, and this thing was so long that I could not find the courses that I needed. But I knew there was a way to maintain this and get it to something reasonable. And actually, you may not be able to see it, but it says fall 2020. So that hasn't even occurred yet. And I've gotten all this stuff down. There's one course above the fall 2020, and it's the one I just finished up with. So the bottom line is you have to take the time to clean things up. But let's go back, and far be it from me to tell you how to fix your computer challenges and different files. But part of it is you got to have the leadership to make sure that people do it right. You get hit by a bus, people need that document or that set of documents or that folder. If you are in an office, have you put it on the cloud? Have you put it on the intranet? Is it on your computer? Is it on a thumb drive somewhere? So you've got to set out some rules on how you're going to do this. Now, like I said, I don't hardly understand Google Docs, so I'm not going to take it on. But what I tell my students is have a process, write it down, and then somebody on the leadership and supervision side has got to make sure that you stay with this, or you're going to be into the same chaos. It'll be like that junk drawer. It'll be full again. And then the last S of 5S is sustain. And it needs to be clean. It needs to be, I've interviewed in companies that there was no way that I was ever going to work there because it was just so filthy dirty and so unhappy. Last story is that we put in a lean manufacturing line in one of the places where I worked, found a huge amount of space, put tape around it, painted that area, and the president of the company said, if I catch anyone putting anything in this area, it will be very bad. He wasn't a very good leader, and the place filled up. So there you go. A little bit of review. We talked about maintenance being a competitive advantage. Technicians are not mechanics necessarily, but they can be. Different types of maintenance. Learning to see so that you can make a list. Planning and scheduling. Whether you are a doer or a hirer. How leadership and supervision actually runs across all the different aspects of maintenance. Documenting things, and 5S. And with that, I think I'm to my questions slide. So if you're still awake, good. Karin, you want to step in here and manage
Sure.
the questions or whatever?
Sure. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give people some time. Instead of raising your hand, since the participants do not have access to audio, we ask for you to type all of your questions in the chat area at the bottom right of your screen. While we wait on people to type in their questions for Jim, I'm going to go ahead and go over our Masters of Science in Operations Management. It's a 100% online. Oh, Jim, are you still at the controls there?
Oh, I am pushing the slide buttons. Okay.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take the slides over this time.
You can have them. You have the jet. Fly the jet.
Anyway, so our Masters of Science in Operations Management is a 100% online or live program. Currently, obviously, we are full online for summer, and we will be awaiting the U of A's decision, hopefully on June 1st, as far as how we're going to progress in the fall. The program is in-state tuition for everyone. There are a total of 10 graduate courses in the program, a total of 30 hours, and up to 4 prerequisite classes may be required depending on prior coursework taken. We have 5 8-week sessions per year. You can pair the master's with graduate certificates with no extra hours required, which I'll go over here in a minute. Currently, we are waiving the GRE and GMAT, but in normal times, there's no GRE or GMAT required as long as your bachelor's GPA is 3.0 or higher. The total program cost is anywhere between $12,000 and $15,000, depending on the prereqs needed, so it's a very affordable program for those who are wanting to continue on with their education. So a special COVID-19 announcement. Currently, the GRE is not being offered for everyone, and so we are waiving the GRE effective fall 2020 term. At this time, we will waive the GRE for all applicants with a 2.5 to 2.99 undergraduate GPA. Applicants with the above a 3.0 GPA, it's automatically waived for any term moving forward. Once the GRE testing centers resume full operations, the standard admission requirements will go back into full effect. So I just mentioned our 3 graduate programs. On top of the Masters of Science in Operations Management, we have 3 graduate programs. 3 graduate certificates. We have Project Management, Homeland Security, and Lean Six Sigma. And I'm waiting on my slide to advance, and it doesn't seem like it wants to cooperate, so we'll try again. There we go. So our graduate certificates, again, Program Management, Lean Six Sigma, and Homeland Security. There's only 4 classes to each certificate. You only need a 2.5 undergraduate GPA to declare a certificate. There are no GRE or GMAT ever for the certificates, and they can stand alone. or you can earn them concurrently with the Masters of Science. So with project management, this is designed to provide the skills to become better project managers and prepare for PMP certification. The Lean Six Sigma is to learn how to eliminate problems, remove waste, and reduce variation to improve operations. And for the Homeland Security, this is designed for industry and safety professionals to learn how to mitigate risk. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get to a couple questions here for Jim. Stephen Ritterbush, thanks for joining us. He says, given the presentation, it feels as though inventory and maintenance are deeply intertwined. What inventory tracking method do you feel is the most ideal to supporting proactive maintenance? Jim?
Well, that's a really good question. Actually, and I'm going to take a chance that on the industrial side, on the home side, you want to make sure you've got everything you need before you get started, and you've probably got a little bit of extra inventory. I know that I buy furnace filters in packs of 4, but let's go back into the industrial side and the ERP side of things. I love the best case was MRP, and that is a system. First off, you have a safety stock and you have a min and a max. Well, when your number of, and I'll say furnace filters, hits 4 remaining, then your ERP system will actually kick off and give you it'll order a part. Now, coming up with your min and max, it'll order all the way up to a max. That is what I call it. I call it materials, anyway, MRP program. So it does it automatically. Now, there's 2 things that block this. First off, people are working under a budget, and sometimes they don't want to order as many, and they want to look at every one of them. Maintenance managers have gone this way a lot. And so you got to trust the system to do that. You have the right, garbage in, garbage out. If you've got the right data in there, then that's what I would use out there. The other thing that's been kind of interesting, and we've been talking about just-in-time inventory, one of the problems and something that I saw was that the reason we didn't have the PPE in the hospitals was because they had been using just-in-time inventory, and they didn't, their mins and their maxes were not anywhere near what they needed to be for this pandemic. I hope that answers your question. If not, engage me a little bit more.
Great, thanks, Jim. And I see Robin Burke was able to join us today. She's one of the veterans of the MSOM webinar series. She just did one last month for us. So Robin, good to see you here. She says, Jim, yeah, thanks for the reminder of how important maintenance is. When I was involved in creating and maintaining very large complex software systems, we had to have a change management process so that fixes in one place and didn't cause other things to fail unexpectedly. So can you shed a little light on how a complex manufacturing operation coordinates maintenance to avoid surprises as side effects?
Oh, I like that question because I've had this conversation many times. Production never wants to shut down so you can do maintenance. So there's 2 sides to this. And Robin, actually with our SAP stuff, we did an awful lot of testing to see what the impact was across the whole enterprise. One of the other things is we took out, we were actually trying to determine why the piece of equipment had broken down, and we had to take one of the drop-down menu items out as that was labeled broke, because everybody wanted to tell us that the reason it failed was because it was broken. Yes, of course, we knew that, so we tried to get them into the electrical side or lack of lubrication. But on the industrial side of things, my standard statement was, I will get the piece of equipment to maintain one way or the other. Now, one way, we take it down as planned. We have a certain amount of time to work on it. We have all the parts and pieces and the know-how to work on it and to get it done in a short period of time. The other side of the equation, and it took a while for them to become believers, is it breaks down and everybody runs around with their hair on fire, and you know, it is a very bad time. So you kind of work your way into this, Robin, because nothing is perfect on day one. But as you work through 6 months, you're going to find out the things that need to be maintained and when, and if you can group some things together as you take down a line or a certain portion of the line. I hope that kind of answers your question.
Great, thanks, Jim. Before everybody starts hopping off here, I'm going to give you a few more minutes to type in your question for Jim. Thank you for attending today. For more information about our flexible degree program options that I just mentioned a few moments ago, you can email me directly, Karen Hickenbotham. My email is there on the screen, or you can visit the operations-management at .uar.edu. The video from today's webinar will be available on our YouTube channel, so registered participants will receive an email from me in the next 24 hours with an email to the video link, and that way you also will have my contact information. So just a few more seconds, and if there's no more questions, we'll go ahead and conclude today's MSOM webinar by Jim Burgin. Jim, thank you so much. That was very insightful. I learned a lot. And our next online session, if you know anybody or if you yourself are interested in hearing more about our program, the next online info session is going to be June 24th. And I can send anyone who is interested a link to register for the webinar. It will be very similar to this. But however, we're going to just have a brief information session about the master's program and the 3 certificate programs, but it'll provide an opportunity for you to do a Q&A with some of our staff members. And so you can also possibly learn about a new course rolling out in the fall. Dr. Rich Ham has shared some of his knowledge on that area, and so if you're interested in that, that's another platform where you can learn more. So if there's no more questions, Jim, thank you again. We appreciate all your hard work on this and your time today. And thank you everyone for attending. Everyone have a good rest of the week and stay safe.
My absolute pleasure, Karen. So we'll talk. Bye.